It's Beer O'Clock and it's the Beer O'Clock Show. My name is Mark, newly promoted beer rookie, and joining me, as always, is my beer mentor and man without a proper intro because I didn't prepare one, Steve. Hello, Steve.
Hi Mark, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Better today.
Very good. We'll get to that in just a little bit. But also joining us for the second time on the show, I think, is world-renowned and award-winning homebrewer and lovely chap extraordinaire, Andy Parker. Hello, Andy.
Good evening, Mark. Good evening, Steve. Good to be back.
Evening.
Very good to have you on the show again. And we're going to be having a nice long chat with you as we talk about this week's beer, amongst other things, in a little while. As we said last week, Steve, on the show, you and I had a little outing on Saturday
We did.
for Adnams and Camden Town Brewery's collaboration beer called Southtown, I think. Wasn't it?
Yes.
Little secret, I didn't actually know the name of the beer until I turned up and saw the signs. That's how
I love it
prepared.
that you do so much research and preparation for this, mate.
Hey, you're lucky. I did I searched at Camden Town Brewery on Apple Maps by mistake, and it would have sent me down to the Strand. That's how good Apple Maps
Close,
is.
yeah.
Yeah. Luckily, I knew it was in Camden, so I kind of knew it was wrong. Anyway.
Seeing as you've been there before,
Yeah. Well, we came the other direction last time. My wife came with me, and we went all around the houses, literally, to get there because I was used to coming from the other direction. Anyway. So,
we digress.
we digress. Southtown was the name of the beer. It's the Adnams and Camden Town Brewery collaboration. It was an Australian red ale. Apparently, it's got Australian hops in it, but I don't know. Don't know. What did you think of the beer, Steve?
I thought it was really nice, actually. Considering it was 4.9%, very sessionable. You could easily, I did have a good few goes at it on Saturday afternoon. A really decent red ale, nice malty backbone with a bit of a spicy, fruity hop finish. So very well balanced though, and very enjoyable as well.
Yeah, I had 3 pints of it, and I was getting different things out of it in every glass, so that was really, really interesting. And we were dragged out the back for a quick interview with Fergus from Adnams and Alex from Camden. Was that his name?
Yes.
Cool. I was 2 pints in by that point.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, you
so,
can tell because we can't shut you up in this interview.
yeah, we had a nice, decent length chat with them. So let's play that now and carry on.
It's Beer O'Clock and welcome to the launch of Southtown Beer at Camden Town Brewery today. We're with Alex and Fergus from the respective breweries, and also, on a rare occasion, Mark's here. Welcome, Mark.
Hello.
That's it.
That's it.
Okay, welcome Alex and Fergus to the show. Can you just firstly start off by telling us how the brew came about?
Well, Fergus, you can go. You can answer that one.
I think it started like most of these things do because we were selling some Camden beer. One of our guys got chatting to Jasper from Camden about whether we should do something a bit more sort of intricate together. We'd been doing some sort of collaborative brews for Wetherspoons, and we'd sort of really enjoyed them, and they got us a lot of sort of coverage and actually expanded our sort of knowledge a lot. So we thought actually what we'd want to do is do the same thing but get a bit more usage out of it and brew with someone that we already dealt with, and that's where sort of Camden came in really.
Okay, and Alex, you got anything to add to that?
No.
Yeah, no comment. No, I when I heard about it, I thought, yeah, that'd be cool. You know, it'd be quite fun to go up to Southwold, and we don't do cask beers. So when we first talked about doing cask, I was quite excited because my whole career has not been doing casks. So to
The whole career has been around not doing cask.
yeah, that's how I based my entire
Your whole
mission
philosophy.
has been to avoid.
Will not do
Yeah,
cask.
it's been avoiding Fergus, but yeah. So I was really excited by it. I thought it'd be great fun.
Because that was actually going to be my next question in terms of you both do very distinct styles of beers, as in Adnams are very traditional sort of English cask beers, as where Camden are sort of all purely keg products. So it's kind of interesting to see how the two styles came together in this brew.
Yeah, I mean, when we first started talking, I think actually the good thing about Fergus and I is we actually had a lot of similar ideas from the start. So, great minds think alike and all that.
And also weak ones, but
yeah, and also weak minds. Yeah, but no, and when we actually, in fact, started talking about like a stout,
something
and like
darker,
a porter,
yeah.
and there was going to be a brown porter, and there was all these things, and actually morphed into what we have in our hand now. But when it came to actually talking about, once we zeroed in on what we're going to do, actually our two ideas were actually, I sort of sent Fergus a summary of what I thought, he sent back a summary of what he thought, and we were just both like, yeah, okay, that sounds good, just roll the dice, let's go for it, So I think from that point of view is for me is quite sort of fun, because this is all about having fun. It's not about trying to exert your creative influence over someone else. It's about just actually talking and having a beer and just enjoying yourselves, and realizing what we're doing isn't too serious. It's just about having some fun at the end of the day.
And I think that's what sometimes we all forget when the sort of day-to-day of brewing beer is actually it is what we're producing is meant to go out and sort of people enjoy it and have fun with it. And I think sort of sometimes you forget in the day-to-day that actually it's good that we do that when we're actually making it as well. So yeah, it was just a few conversations between Alex and myself about what we wanted to brew, the styles we wanted to brew, sort of the influences that we both bring in terms of sort of where we're brewing now and where we've come from, and put those together, and we come up with a beer and we see what turns out really, and hopefully people enjoy it. But we've enjoyed making it, and hopefully people enjoy it when they drink it.
Yeah. And you chose to launch the beer here in Camden, which was more of a challenge probably for Camden than it was for the guys from Adnams, because you'll keg up here. So how did you go about installing the cask bar outside?
Yeah, well, we had a couple of different people that we worked with in the past. So we had someone come down that's helped us build our little temporary bars, like the one that's outside, make the little cask rack. And we had another guy come down and do a little installation for all the cooling jackets and the casks, and then basically put the hand pumps, beer engines in. So there's quite a bit of work actually goes into actually making the event happen. But for me, it's quite fun. Like I came up today at lunchtime and I saw like all the little what do you call them? The little flags, the little
bunting.
Oh, the bunting.
Yeah.
And
a lot of bunts went on earlier.
and the deck chairs and all that, and so for me it's pretty fun.
Okay. Fergus, anything to add to that?
No, well, I think cask beer is its own sort of unique thing. You have to learn how to handle it and treat it, and I think the guy came up and set it up on Thursday to sort of give the guys a briefing about what to do with it, and but a lot of the time it's just about time and knowing when it's ready and when it's not. So we sort of came up this morning and make sure everything was ready, and all the beer was ready to go. So we're quite happy with how it's turned out.
Mm-hmm. And we've been enjoying the beer all afternoon.
All afternoon.
All afternoon we've been enjoying this beer.
Grinning and bearing it.
No, not grinning and bearing it at all. It's a really enjoyable beer. I'm just really keen to get your kind of personal views on the final product. What do you personally think it tastes like?
Well, I said it earlier. Fergus laughed at me, but I said I'm stoked. I was
stoked is the equivalent of awesome, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. For me, I was quite. It's stressful, and because we brewed it up at Adnams, Fergus would have been feeling most of the stress, like just seeing it come together and just really hoping is right and everything. Where I've been down here, kind of like just thinking, Fergus, what's it like? A couple of phone calls, a couple of emails, and Fergus just sends like a short response. Yeah, it's good, it's hoppy. Send, with not much other explanation, but. I've been in a situation before where I've had beers we made one off, and I'm really stressed about it because you do something once.
Yeah.
And I said to someone just earlier, it's like, imagine making 20,000 liters of soup and inviting some mates over for dinner and hoping it tastes okay, and that's in essence what we did.
20,000 mates.
Yeah.
And I'm very, very happy. Like actually, for me, I actually could not be happier, really. Like I think it's come up exactly how I would have hoped it would come up.
Okay.
No, I think it's probably, although Alex probably thinks it's more stressful, but it probably was more stressful for him because I get to taste it, whereas Alex sort of, although after we've brewed it, obviously doesn't get to taste it until I send him a sample. So I can see how it's going, how it's moving, and I can see whether it's going to be any good or not. And I think obviously when you taste it every day, you can see, and I'm probably not extremely good at conveying that over an email because all I do is say, yeah, it's fine, it's good and hoppy, because I don't do superlatives very well. And awesome, and
But I reckon
what was that word?
I reckon you had a career in writing wine labels, man.
Yeah, that's fine. I can do that. Petrol and whatnot.
Vanilla notes, all that sort of stuff.
What was your word? What was
Stoked.
Stoked. Yeah. I don't have an Irish equivalent of stoked or awesome. So I probably don't convey that very well. But yeah, I think it's come out really well. I think it's as Alex said, as a sort of one shot, one beer wonder. I think it's really, really good actually. And I think it has a lot of elements from Adnams and has a lot of elements from Camden. So I don't think we can ask for any more really.
Okay, and it's always good to get Mark's views on beers as well.
You're so good, Mark.
As the beer noob or the beer rookie, Mark, tell us what you think of the beer.
He's not actually here. This is just Steve putting his voice on.
No, he's right here.
No, he's not here. No one here.
Thank you, Stephen. Well, I didn't know what to expect from the beer because I didn't know anything about it other than you guys had done the collaboration. And my exposure to Camden Town beers has been very limited. I think the one time we've come to the bar is the one time I've had Camden Town beers.
Yeah.
I've had more exposure to the Adnams beers, Ghost Ship, Innovation, the Jack Brand stuff. So I didn't know what to expect from it. And it's very nice.
You mean? I think he means his mind is blown.
He's absolutely blown away. Mark,
You're stoked. Say you're stoked.
I am completely fucking stoked. It's a really nice beer. It's a nice, the nice bitterness at the end, but it's nice piney floral on the nose and.
Okay, Mark, what colour is it?
It's definitely red.
Okay, fantastic.
Very red tasting.
Red ale doesn't exist, but we'll move on with that.
It's all a hue.
So, final questions. You've both got to be quite happy with the reception of the beer today.
Yeah,
there's a good turnout today here at the Camden Town Brewery. I think Fergus, you were saying earlier on that it's completely sold out.
Yeah, so the first batch is gone. The second batch is basically sold out before it's even been racked, and that's before anyone's even tasted it. So, which is quite amazing.
All the people have tasted it now, but everyone else has placed orders already.
Yeah, so everyone else has bought it before they even tasted it. So it's fantastic.
Good news. And is there anything in the future for you guys in terms of, is this the first of many collaborations, or what can we expect next?
I think it's gone quite well. I think from sort of Adnams side, I think we might want to try and do something in, and hopefully from Camden as well.
Yeah, he's all right. So we'll see how we go.
He didn't drink too much when he came up, so it didn't cost us.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, guys. Thanks for sparing the time to chat to us this evening, and we're going to go back to the bar and enjoy much more of
I reckon
the
Mark needs to have a triple.
You should try the triple. It's really good.
I've had a sip of the triple before.
Yeah.
When we were last here. Yeasty was the term I came up with.
Belgian-y.
Belgian-y,
I think was the phrase that you used.
Well, actually, that's ironic because that's exactly what it's going for.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Okie doke. So they were nice blokes. I've not met either of them before. Steve?
Sorry, I have. Obviously
Okay.
met Fergus before because he's appeared on the show, and I've also met Alex recently, and that interview wouldn't have gone out yet because that's going out in part 2 of this season. So there will be another interview with Alex from Camden Town later on in this season when we review a couple of their beers as well.
I think I said to you on Saturday I was surprised that Fergus was so young looking because I was expecting some bearded, grizzled old brewer who liked to stare out to the sea, reminiscing about his time in the Merchant Navy or something like that. But no, he's a young bloke.
By all accounts, a lot of people make that assumption that he's much older than he is.
Well, a name Fergus, you would expect him to be older than the hills. Anyway,
And there's only one batch. They've only brewed one batch of that beer.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Once it's gone, it's gone this time round. So if you do see it, I would highly recommend giving it a go. Only available on cask as well.
Didn't they say they've done another one, but it's already been bought out or something?
It's already been bought, yeah.
Yeah.
All of this batch of the Southtown, this batch and the next batch is already gone. It's already sold.
Into their pubs or into
Yeah.
pubs, yeah. They're not bottling it.
No.
Right.
Well, you can get it in. Sorry, I keep butting in. You can get it in the mini kegs in Adnams shops and from their website as well. If you do want to try it at home.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Cool. Okay, let's move on. Do you have some news, Steve?
Yes, I do. Where's my news? There it is. I was wondering where my news intro was.
It's my favourite part of the show. The
You could have joined in, Andy. I could have had like double okay, yeah, this week's news. So last week we spoke about the Brewdog mash tag again. That finished off last week with a most uninspiring beer that it ended up being.
Quite surprise.
Yeah, 9% Imperial Red Ale, hopped with a mix of Amarillo, Matica, and Mittelfr. I don't know if I pronounced that right, Andy. You might be able to help out there.
German hop.
Yeah. With the added twist of blood orange, orange peel, and lemon peel. So basically, they've produced a 9% citrusy red ale. Nothing too inspiring there, personally, from my opinion.
Can one of you tell me what defines an imperial beer? Is it just the strength of it? Andy?
Yeah, I was hoping you're going to ask Steve. Yeah,
Oh, really? I was going to defer to you.
You get imperial stouts that are, can be in the high sixes slash, early 7%. Imperial IPA, double IPA. I think it just comes down to how you name it. There are some, if you look at the BJCP style guidelines, it does define things like imperial stout, but it gives a range of strengths and things like that. So, yeah, there's a little bit of poetic license there, I think.
Okay, so it comes down purely to how strong it is then?
Generally, yeah.
Okay, cool. Continue, Stephen.
Oh, well, that was it, really. I think I'm just a little bit bitter this year because last year I chose all of the winning things every day, so it ended up being the beer that I wanted. This year it all went wrong on the first day, and I chose none of the right things. But
I didn't either. I think in the end, I think I went for the international hops, which was the one that was chosen. I quite fancied an amber or something a bit more sessionable, maybe for summer. But I'd like to give it a go though. It sounds like the kind of beer I enjoy drinking.
To be honest with you, Andy, I think they've been looking at some of your recipes recently and decided they're going to crib some of your ideas with some of the stuff they've ended up throwing in. But anyway, that's Mash Tag. It'll be out later on this year. No doubt we'll end up reviewing it and we'll end up calling it a pile of shite, probably. But they're still doing their label competition. If there's any budding artists out there that want to design the label, that's open I think until the 24th. So by the time the show goes out, that gives you the weekend basically to come up with a label.
Well, they can get the receptionist from Dominion to do one. She did great work on that bottle we did a few weeks ago.
Well, yeah, a stag of a hop. Far from inspiring. That would just go with a beer, wouldn't it? Yeah. Actually. Mm-hmm. Okay, next story is American craft brewery Founders they're going to be releasing more of their beers into the United Kingdom. Year-round and seasonal beers will be available in keg, following an initial launch of the Founders All Day IPA earlier on this year, which I've not had, but I've heard great things about. Andy, have you had the All Day IPA?
I have tried it, yeah. I tried it in bottle, thought it was very nice. So, yeah, we'll keep an eye out and grab one of the cans that came in. I think there's kegs floating about as well, so it's good to see. I think Founders make some pretty good beer, particularly some of their stouts, so hopefully we'll see some of those too.
Excellent. Well, if they're expanding, hopefully that means they'll expand more of their range as well.
Yeah, even I've had some of their beers. So there you go.
Wow.
I know.
That's one up on me there, mate. I've had none of the Founders beers. And then finally, St Austell Brewery from Cornwall, I believe. They're releasing a new beer, a new version of their tribute beer called Tribute Extra, which is a ramped up version of their flagship beer. available in bottles. It's got everything they love about the normal tribute in it, but with extra hops, extra strength, and balanced fuller malt flavour. Be available in supermarkets widely. So that's this week's news. Nothing really overly exciting. Sorry. Yeah.
Right, well, let's get on to this week's beer, and during the course of which we shall have a nice little chat to Mr. Parker. This is a beer by a brewery that I believe, Andy, you've had connections with in the past.
Indeed.
It's a brewery called Weird Beard, and nothing like a weird beard. And the beer is a black IPA, 6.2% ABV, called Fade To Black. Now, Andy, what can you tell us about this beer, mate?
Well, yeah, it's a black IPA. And I believe so it's Sriracha, Citron, I think Pacific Gem are the hops used in it. It's quite a I mean, some black IPAs they just use the dark malts for colour. This has got a nice bit of roastiness in it, and I hope that we'll taste it in a minute and can compare it to other black IPAs we've had, and lots of kind of hoppy and a nice bitter finish on it. So yeah, I look forward to getting it open and trying it.
You've already opened yours. Don't play up.
Rumbled.
Right. Well, Steve, you and I can get this open. And
Yeah.
let's pour it out.
I can try. I'm still struggling a little bit. Only having one
Oh yeah,
hand.
because you got your pour.
Yeah.
Right. Let's give this a pour. It's certainly black. It's got a proper head on it as well.
Yeah, it's looking good. That.
Mine's a bit
Nice
of a miss
thick
pour.
hair. That's a good pour there, mate.
Thank
You've
you.
done really well. Just hold it up again. I don't know whether Andy saw that or not. Yeah.
I did. I saw it.
Yeah.
It's an admirable pour on. Yep.
I had to take a sip before it spilleth over, and very nice.
It's got big piney aromas. Hint of licorice there on the aroma as well. I think coming through.
Yeah, I get sort of the roasted malts on the nose as well. A bit of that kind of coffee, as you said, licorice, sort of roasted aroma. And then if I sniff nice and hard, I get the citrus goes right up your nose, and it's it's definitely even before tasting it, you can smell the hops there, and and as you said, Mark, it's pretty much, even holding it up to light, it's pretty much pitch black, maybe a tinge of red.
Yeah.
On the fringe of the glass, but very dark black IPA.
Well, the label does say it's blacker than a Metallica album. Or Metallica album cover. And hoppier than a frog that's just been dropped. Okay. Okay. Right.
But this is this beer was one of the prototypes that I tasted ages ago, when Greg and Brian were doing some Meet the Brewer events, trying to get the brewery up and running. And this is one of the beers that I blogged about at the time. I think it was April 2012. So the beer itself has been around a while, and it's one that I think Greg was homebrewing, long before Weird Beard, became a whatever the words I'm looking for are, but became a something they were in their misty future and came together, and so they've gone on and brought this into their core range, which is fantastic. So I think it's a lovely beer.
Okay, how long have Weird Beard been going for?
They they sent a tweet earlier today saying that a year ago today, and we're recording on is it the 17th of March? It is St. Patrick's Day. It was the first release of their first cask beer that came out, and that was Black Pearl, that they released up at the Berlin Highgate. So I believe they actually started brewing in January of 2013. So they're barely a year old.
Wow.
Pretty impressive how far they've come in that year. And this beer was, I believe, one of the first ones they brewed, and they brewed it a few times since. And so one of their cool beers that was a favourite, and seems to be pretty popular on your beer rating sites, rate beer, and so on. So yeah, you can see why.
Yeah, I don't think there'd be very many craft wankers in London who haven't heard of Weird Beard.
I wouldn't have thought so. No.
Yeah. Sorry, Stephen, you were going to say something. What?
I was just going to say, because this is one of our sort of London series beers. We've got the interview at the end of tonight's show with Greg from Weird Beard, and he actually talks about how this particular beer came about and what goes into it, and why it's kind of so special to him as well. So just urge people to hang around after the little tune at the end for the interview with Greg, because it's a good one as well. It weighs in a hefty 20 minutes or so, but there's some good stuff that he shares on the interview.
Cool. Well, without any further ado, let's get into this beer, mate.
Yes.
Steve,
sorry.
If you've finished nodding to your people off screen.
I said, yeah, my people said I can talk now. It's fine. Yes, let's get into it.
Right.
Cheers.
Cheers.
You get initial hit that you'd expect from an IPA, but then instantly you start getting those roasted dark flavours coming through, and a lovely bit of finish at the end there.
Yeah. I'm very happy that it's not a hop bomb like I was afraid it would be. It's kind of softened by those malts.
Because you do like a big black IPA, don't you?
Yes.
Full of hops. It's your favourite style of beer.
Yeah. Yeah, very smooth beer so far. I mean, mine is relatively cold. It's been in the fridge all day. So I'm sure that once it warms up a little bit more, I'll get more out of it. So I'm just going to let it swirl here for a little bit. Andy, why don't you tell us how you got started working with Weird Beard?
Yeah, sure. So I've met Greg a while ago. As I said, they were doing some Meet the Brewer stuff before they got going back in early 2012. But I met Greg back in 2011. I think it was a Colonel Meet the Brewer thing at the Cask, their pre-GBBF event in 2011. And I was talking to Greg about homebrewing, and I hadn't started homebrewing at that point. And he was somebody that was kind of tweeting and blogging about homebrewing, and I was asking him about that. And he's someone that kind of supported my homebrewing and helped me get going, and suffered through some of my earlier brews, and gave me lots of good feedback. So one of the earlier beers I brewed was a beer called Nelson Saison. It was a Saison that was hopped with Nelson Sauvin hops, and Greg really liked it. And he gave me some great feedback. He wasn't just being nice; he seemed to genuinely like it, which is good of him. So when Weird Beard got going, I was already starting to think about where I wanted to take my home brewing, and the name Elusive Brewing came about. And so Greg and Brian kindly offered to brew this beer on at 10 barrels at the whole brew length, and it was released as one of their single hop series beers back in May, I think, of last year. And it was a great day brewing it, and a great day launching it at a Twist Up in Macclesfield that Phil Hardy had organised. And I was very grateful to Brian and Greg for letting me do that. And it was pretty special seeing your own recipe on the bar and asking for a pint of it. It's very nice.
And Andy, we chat to Greg in the interview at the end about that, and I did ask him if he had any intentions to speak to you about rebrewing it again, and he said we'd have to ask you. So because it's essentially your beer, and you've got to give them the okay to brew it again. So what are your thoughts on that? Are we liable to see it again at some point in the future?
I'd love to brew it again. I think when we did the first brew, we kind of tweaked the recipe a bit because we couldn't get hold of any Nelson Sauvin hops, and in fact Greg managed to eventually scrounge a 5 kilogram bale of it from somewhere, and we got the brew done. So if they can get hold of some more Nelson, then good luck to them, and I'd love to go there and brew it again. But we agreed that at the time, as I was starting to think about Elusive Brewing and what I wanted to do there, that if that ever got up and running, that kind of remains my recipe. But the chance to brew Greg again and Brian again would be fantastic.
Excellent. I tried it last summer, and I mean, that's a long time ago to remember exactly how it was, but I remember it being very good. And I'm not obviously not just saying that because you sat there in front of me, but it was a very enjoyable beer. Went down very, very easily. I think I had it in the middle of summer, and it was just the perfect summer beer as far as I was concerned.
Yeah, I think it was also. I mean, my sister's a great example. Doesn't really drink beer, likes white wine, rosé wine, and she really got along with the beer. I think because it was, we made it. It was highly carbonated. The saisons are quite spritzy, and the Nelson hops have that kind of gooseberry Sauvignon Blanc kind of character to them, and it was a good. I think a good. Although it was nigh on 7%, it was a good introductory beer to maybe wine drinkers that wanted to try beer. So I think it went down pretty well last summer.
Any questions, Steve? My mind's gone blank.
You've drawn a blank.
Yeah.
Andy, you mentioned there obviously about Elusive Brewing. That's your kind of brand name. Any future plans for that particular element of your brewing?
Yeah, there are, and I've actually got an exclusive for you, Steve and Mark, as well. So I'll get onto that in a minute. A good bit of news on the Elusive front.
Do we need Mark's pips again?
We'll cue the breaking news pips in a minute. I mean, you mentioned on a previous show about the craft beer competition, and I was absolutely made up to have won that. And one thing that Martin, who's the owner of the Craft Beer Co, said during his speech was that the idea behind the prize was that the winner would perhaps go on and try and do something with that money around brewing commercially or starting something up. Others have done kind of crowdfunding and things like that, but the reason they went with such a big prize, or it's huge for a homebrew competition, was to try and encourage the winner to do a bit more and dip their toes in commercially, and that's what I'm planning to do. So my exclusive news is that I'll be doing some cookie brewing.
Hang on.
So I'm actually going to be brewing a collaboration with Mike James of Landlocked Brewing up in Derby. We're cookie brewing elsewhere, but it's going to go out as a collaboration brew. Mike, some of you may know from his days at Buxton Brewery. So he left there last year and is starting out his own venture, Landlocked Brewing, Landlocked Brew on Twitter. We've been talking for a while. I've known Mike for a while, and even before this competition win came to be, we were talking about doing a collaboration. So we're going to brew a farmhouse IPA. We're brewing it in it's an IPA in the Belgian style, let's say. So we'll be using not a yeast you might associate with an IPA, but something of a Belgian ilk or a French ilk. Having a nice hoppy beer. We're aiming for up near the 7% mark, and we expect to release that in May.
Andy, just to the uninitiated, what does cuckoo brewing mean?
So cuckoo brewing, I suppose the term comes from the birds that lay their eggs in other people's nests, other birds' nests.
Right.
So what you're talking about there is using it's a brewery, typically a larger brewery that is maybe not using all of their capacity, so they're effectively selling that capacity on to other breweries, and you go there and brew on their kit. You pay them for use of their kit and the use of their time if you use their time and things like that. And but obviously the beer is is branded as you wish, so it goes out. We'll put it out under the Landlocked and Elusive names as a collaboration.
Excellent.
Very good news.
You heard it here first, folks.
You did.
I think we're having that one as another exclusive.
Oh, what a shame no one listens.
Yeah, well, a few people listen. A few people actually comment on the show occasionally. Shall we? I'm just conscious that we've probably not spoken much about the beer that we've got in our hands.
I've been letting mine warm for a little bit.
I'm quite keen to to get Andy's view on the Sriracha Ace that's been used in it, because I think Greg says in the interview it's a bit of a Marmite hop that you either love it or hate it. Why has it got that sort of background, Andy? What is it about Sriracha Ace that the people either love or hate?
I will admit, I was just trying this taste for the Marmite. That's not what you mean, is it?
Yeah, a real Marmite hop would be interesting, but yeah, it's a fascinating hop. I mean, it's got a sort of Japanese heritage. So it was a small crop hop that was grown in Japan originally. Most of the stuff that, in fact, I think all of it that brewers get hold of now is actually brewed in the USA. So they've kind of cultivated that hop and grow it over there on a slightly larger scale. It's still pretty hard to get hold of if you're a small brewery, and I know Greg uses it in a few of their beers. I think it's the reason it's a bit of a Marmite hop is that it's quite an extreme flavour, and I actually get different things from it depending on the style of beer that it's in. And I've brewed a beetroot saison with it, and in that beer it comes across as quite lemony. Other people say they get kind of a bubblegum, and some other weird kind of flavours like that. In a dark beer, and in this beer, the Fade to Black, I think it's maybe a little bit sort of toasty and coconutty, if that would make sense. And you don't really get, I don't really get the lemony notes from it in a dark beer. I think the citrus is coming from the citra that's used here. But yeah, it's quite a divisive hop. But I think there are some fantastic beers made with it. I think Brooklyn Sriracha Ace is a great example. I believe that's a sort of saison style. Comes in a big 750ml champagne bottle, and that's a wonderful beer. The most extreme beer I had with it, the Brewdog do their IPA is Dead, and they brewed a 7% IPA that was purely hopped with Sriracha, and that really divided people, because obviously they got as much as they could out of the hop and just put it all out there for people to taste. And yeah, that was initially I didn't really like that beer, but it's one of those ones as you get through it, you find more and more different things, and I think that's what divides people, is that if you have a citra, you have that kind of citrusy, some people say like a cat pee kind of thing that you get from it, but it's very you know what you're getting with it. Whereas Sriracha, different people find very different things in it depending on their palate, and that's where it's divisive.
Probably the most detailed explanation we've ever had on this show of any ingredient in beer, which I'm just here sat in stunned silence that you're able to share that amount of knowledge about a single hop. Because I'm thinking that's kind of what we should be doing. every week.
Don't look at me.
Yeah, don't look at you. Might just downgrade you again, mate. Back down to noob.
Well, I was chatting with random bloke off Twitter on Saturday, Justin. He came along to the Camden thing, and he was saying to me, "Surely you're not be a noob anymore after 2 years doing the show." And I said, "Well, things still taste like beer to me, and hoppy and malty." And he suggested I do a series of single hop beers along a hop strain to get used to what the actual flavours of the hops are. So
that's not a bad shout, actually.
I am looking into that. So I tweeted yesterday saying, "What are some single hop beers?" And I got a couple of unhelpful responses, so I just googled it instead.
Yeah, I think if you're going to really try and pick and learn about the flavours of hops, you want ideally the only sort of variable in the difference between the beers to be the hop. So like the single hop series beers that Brewdog do are a good example. Mikkeller do them, just where they got the same base recipe, but they're just switching the hop.
Right.
Other breweries, I think Mallinsons are a good brewery that do single hop beers. It's either that or you go and pick out some individual beers that have a single hop in them, and you be comparing some other differences between the beers themselves. But things like Oakham Citra is just a classic Citra beer, and there's plenty of beers out there that show off hops very well.
think Weird Beard do them as well, don't they, Andy? You were sampling one this weekend, weren't you? Their latest one. The
Citra Pilsner. I think that's number 4 in the series. So they've actually varied the style each time. So number 1, we tested my memory here. Number 1 was the Chinook, the bullring brown beer, as they had another name for it. So that was a English style beer with lots of Chinook hops. Number 2 was the Nelson Saison. Number 3 was an Amarillo Belgian style ale, and number 4 was the Pilsner. So, as well as varying the hop, they're varying the style of the beer as well. But I think it's a great way to learn about hops.
Yes, me too.
The other way is to get your hands on some, Mark, and give them a good rub between your fingers. You really can, get the aroma out of don't taste them, whatever you do, but you can really get a feel for the aroma just by rubbing the hop in your finger and. Stiffen your fingers. You won't want to wash your hands afterwards if it's nice hop.
That's the one thing I need to do with Mark. Actually, is we need to get on a brewery tour where because you get. I've been on a couple of tours where they let you have a go at feeling the hops and that sort of thing. So I think we still need to do a brewery tour or something, mate, or two.
Well, the mob that make Wandle aren't far away from me. They're only in Battersea. Who are they called again?
Sandbrooks.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're on. In the second part of the series as well. I'm so glad you pay attention to the stuff I do.
I told you I read all of it, but I never remember it.
They'll be featured on the second part of this season. I went down and met Sean and did an interview with him, but he's quite happy to have us down there for a bit of a tour and maybe to do, because I know you and I have been chatting about the potential of doing kind of like a sort of bottle share event.
Mm-hmm.
I think they mentioned they might be quite willing to host something for us that's based around a bit of a tour of the site as well. So that's maybe something we'll work up for a bit of our summer event maybe that we're planning.
Sounds good to me.
So what's your beer like then? Is it warmed enough now for you?
It is.
Anything?
Yeah, I have to say, for a black IPA, and I've only had a handful of them before, but this gets a few marks in its favour. One is that it's not a hop bomb, like I was afraid it would be, and 2, that maltiness, the roastedness coming through was really smooth, really nice, and complements it really well. I think I'm not getting that much else.
As I've found, as it's warmed, it's become more stout-like. Actually, initially when it came out of the bottle, it had all the characteristics of a big hoppy IPA, but now it's warmed and it's come into its last few sips in the glass. It's got a very much a stouty feel about it.
I thought it was stouty when I first started drinking it, but then that's just the roast malt for me. I'm not getting much else from it. It's just really nice. I'm almost done.
Final words of wisdom.
No, it's nice. Very good.
Yeah.
Full marks to Weirbeard.
Yeah, I think it's a great black IPA. As I said, I think it's on the roasty side, but that totally works. You mentioned it becomes more stout-like as it warms, and maybe the malts come to the fore. Great balance. As you said, it's not a massive hop bomb. Although on the aroma and on the finish, it's obviously a hoppy beer. But I think it's a really good beer, and it's one that is one of my favourite Weirbeard beers, and I'll certainly be drinking a lot more of this, I reckon.
Yeah, same here. I think it's only the second time I've had it now. The last time was on my ill-fated Back to Black evening that we did back in November, where things went very wrong very quickly on that evening. But I said to Mark earlier while I was off air, I've got to stop doing one of two things. I've either got to stop drinking too much, or I've got to stop doing stupid things when I've had too much to drink. I think it's probably going to be the former of those two that I employ.
Yeah, the second one's not going to happen.
It's not, is it? No, because
No.
I just revert to my childish behaviour.
You need to find that tipping point.
Yes, absolutely.
You can have a few beers and not misbehave. But another thing about Fade to Black is that it's available cask, keg, and bottle, so it's a good one to, as you hunt it down, to compare across the three formats as well.
Okay. Other than in the craft beer codes, I've never seen weird beers anywhere behind a bar. Where's the best places to find them, Andy? You seem to have some success.
There was one at Brewdog Camden when we were there, I'm sure.
Yeah, the Brewdog bars in London certainly buy weird beer, and of course they did their collaboration with Brewdog Camden as well. The Hart pub in Chandler's Place near Charing Cross, they always seem to have a weird beer on. They buy a fair bit of it, I think, and yeah, it's a good place to go. Where else? Ooh. There's the Crown and Magpie, is it, in Brentford, a local place to try it down near the brewery. Yeah, I think your best bet, if you're in London and you're not normally in London, drop a tweet to the brewery at weirdbeard_brew and ask them where they've shipped some to or delivered some to recently, and yeah, see if you can find any. But yeah, like any successful small brewery, yeah, they can barely supply enough beer and barely make enough to get out there. So yeah, it's become hard to find maybe, but it's a nice problem to have, I think. And I think Greg and Brian and Dan at the brewery there are pretty pleased with their weird beer. Their rate beer 5th best new brewery in the world of 2013. And
wow.
But Greg was saying the phone's been ringing even more than it did since then, and they've got even less beer to sell. So
there was a lot of people. A lot of people voted them as their best brewery in the Golden Pints as well at the tail end of last year.
Yeah,
across the blogging community.
Best new brewery, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
Actually, there were 3 UK breweries in that top 10. I mean, there was also Pressure Drop in London, and there's a local brewery to me, Siren Craft Brew down in Finchampstead near Woking. So that's great. It's a good, it says a lot about British beer. And you mentioned Founders, importing, and that's great. But hey, there's a lot of great beer being made in the UK now, and it's I think we're in pretty good shape.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's one thing this season is proving, is just in London itself, there's so many great breweries that are deserving of the attention.
Definitely.
Question for Andy. Apart from Brewdog Shepherd's Bush, what's your favourite pub in London at the moment?
Oh, that's a good question. Probably the one I go to mostly would be the Craft Beer Co. In Clerkenwell. Great selection on there. I also like the Cask. Southampton Arms is a favourite of mine. Lovely little pub.
Whereabouts is that?
That's right near. It's not far from Camden Brewery, actually.
You've been there.
I've been where?
To the Southampton Arms.
Have I?
Yes.
Where is it?
On the Crimbo Crawl. It was the first pub we went to.
What, in Gospel Oak?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
Is that what it was called? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't remember these things. That was a really nice little pub. That.
Lots of
character. Nice meat and pies in there and things like that as well.
Amazing pork sort of rolls.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just tremendous food.
I didn't sample that when I was there. Never mind. Anyway, let's move on.
Sorry, kind of killed that moment for you there, didn't I?
Right.
So, Mark, have you got any closer to last week's challenge that I set you, that you had to come up with the most ridiculous ingredients to suggest to Andy for a brew?
Well, I think licorice and strawberry is really nice. I did suggest to him when I misread. I mentioned this on the show a couple of weeks ago. When I misread what the name of his new beer was, and I thought it was Lord Motherfucker, and he was asking me what kind it would be, and I think I said something like it was some kind of saison with the lemon pre-inserted or something. I can't remember what the flavours were.
I can't remember that.
But I think licorice and strawberry Pilsner would be quite interesting. But what I would actually drink would be like a tutti fruity saison. Would be lovely, I reckon, for summer.
Like tutti frutti, like the sweets used to be, or
yeah, like all the fruits and stuff in it.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Do you want the sugariness as well? That sugary hit that you got used to get from Tutti Fruities.
Yes, I want it all. It stays on in time for summer.
I'll see what I can do. But it's good fun. That's a great thing about home brewing, compared to commercial brewing, is you do it on a really small scale, and if you brew it and it's rubbish, you pour it away, you move on. You haven't lost too much money.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's fun to experiment. And,
I have to say that
I've been doing a bit of that lately.
You, Chris, and Emma and Duty inspired me to try my hand at home brewing up until I told the wife, and she put the kibosh on it. But one day I'll get there.
Yeah, and I recommend give it a go. I mean, as we were saying earlier about the hops, it's the best way to learn about beer is to make it, like anything. I think you learn an awful lot from home brewing, and particularly how the flavors get into the beer and the difference each ingredient makes. It's a great way to learn about beer, and the end result is beer normally, which is good. I mean, there aren't many hobbies that produce beer as an output.
And hopefully drinkable beer as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Andy, I've got to ask, what's that little computer program that you use that you always put screenshots up of that shows you what the ingredients and how does that help you brewing, or does that just
that's
kind of act as a
a
guide?
little app called Beer Tools, and when I started home brewing, it was Popzine Rob Derbyshire recommended it to me and said, "Hey, have a look at this program." And I downloaded a trial. You can get a free trial on their website, and had a bit of a poke around with it. And it's pretty nice. I mean, there's plenty of apps out there, Beersmith and some others that do a similar thing. But what it's basically doing is it does a lot of the maths for you. I mean, there's a lot of theory you can learn that underpins brewing. And if you go on any brewing courses, they'll teach you the maths, or you buy any homebrew books. They'll go into actually calculate things like alcohol content, how you calculate the bitterness each hop addition will add, and things like that. But these programs kind of do that for you, so you can learn it, more at your own leisure. So I use it for just putting a recipe together, and then it helps guide me on brew day around when to add each ingredient and how much and things like that. And it's got a little notepad thing in there where you can record the temperatures you strike temperature and your mash temperature and things like that. And so if you do make something really nice, it'll help you reproduce it.
Excellent. And just one final question for me. Obviously, you're going to start dipping your toe into the commercial side a little bit more now. Are you continuing with your home brewing at the same time as well?
Yeah, I will. I think it's because I think I need to keep learning. I think any brewer will tell you it's a huge learning curve, and you learn with every brew you do. So yeah, I do intend to keep home brewing, and as I move through this year, I'll try and get a couple of cookie brews under my belt, and then look to I've got a 100-litre kit, but perhaps looking at growing that again and get to the point where I can brew my own kit and sell beer commercially from there. So I will certainly keep home brewing, if only to keep learning and refining what will be the elusive brewing recipes.
Well, listen, mate, good luck with all that. I hope it all goes to plan, and I look forward to trying many, many more of your beers.
Thanks very much, and I look forward to maybe coming back on the show in future for an elusive brewing beer.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you're already in.
Yeah.
When that first one's out in a bottle, you're there, mate.
We'll book you.
Awesome.
Right, I think that's about it. Next week we've got a double header of the same beer, so we're trying. Steve, tell us what we're doing next week.
Next week we're doing Piston Head Custom Lager, which is from Sweden, but it's currently being imported in quite some volume into the UK. We got gifted some cans and some bottles, so I thought it'd be quite an interesting thing to do both on the show and see if they tasted any different. So we're gonna do the same beer twice next week, but from a different vessel.
And if it doesn't taste any different, then the end result is we've had a shitload of Piston Head.
Well, the end result for you will probably be woo!
Woo! Yeah, cool. Okay, you can find us on Twitter at Beer O'Clock Show. You can find Andy on Twitter at Tabumatu. I think that's right, isn't it, Andy?
That's correct. Yeah.
Tabamatu.
That's me.
And Andy, are you on there with Elusive Brew as well?
Yeah, that's just Elusive Brew.
Okay, cool. So you can go follow Tabamoto because he's got always plenty of nice beer chat, and follow us at Beer O'Clock Show as well. And the website is beeroclockshow.co.uk as usual, and you can find us on iTunes and Stitcher. Give us a review or a rating or a thumbs up, it really helps. And Steve, anything further you want to say?
It's been the highlight of my week, as always. Just hanging around for the interview at the end with Greg from Weird Beard, because it's a bit of a cracker of an interview.
It is. Cool. Okay. Well, thank you very much again, Andy. We hope to have you on the show many more times in the future. And
Thank you.
Best of luck with your brewing.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers, everyone. Bye-bye.
It's Beer O'Clock and welcome to another instalment of our Season 4 Breweries of London series. This week I'm joined by Greg Irwin, co-founder of Weird Beard Brew Co. Welcome, Greg.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm very well, thanks.
Good. Thank you for being on this week's show. Appreciate you giving up your time. I was wondering if we could just start off with some basics. How did you get into brewing?
Started off quite a long time ago, I guess. Well, 2007, and I was a bit of a wine geek at the time, or certainly a wine drinker, and walked into a bar in Toronto to discover they were selling flights of Dogfish Head beer.
Okay.
And such a weird and wonderful set of taste sensations then materialised that I suddenly, almost overnight, was changed into a bit of a beer geek. Came back to London after that and found that I couldn't find those beers or beers like that in London at the time. It was just before, a year before Colonel opened, and or Sandbrooks, I think maybe the first one that kind of come back into London. So I then started homebrewing, and from homebrewing then led to ideas of possibly above my station to become a professional brewer and get on there and get on with it.
Okay, and with your homebrewing, I think I'm right in saying you won some awards, didn't you?
Yeah, I won some awards at the London and South East Craft Beer Festivals. It's a kind of reasonably big festival organised by the London Amateur Brewers, who I was a member of. And so I had lucky enough to get a few awards there in a couple of years. I was entering. So
okay. And you co-founded Weird Beard with Brian?
Yes, indeed.
Who was also a homebrewer at the time?
Brian was also a homebrewer at the time, yeah. We met at a Brewdog launch, the first IPA is Dead launch at the Eastern Tap, when he was sitting there reading a Japanese craft beer magazine, and we just started chatting, and things kind of materialised after that.
Okay. So how did the concept of, obviously from there, that's where you got your ideas above your stations and decided to go into professional brewing. Yeah. How did Weird Beard come about? How the concept, the name?
There was quite a rocky birth to Weird Beard. We'd had a few other people involved at times, kind of flitting in and out of the project, and at one stage it looked as if it was just going to be Brian on his own, because I was almost kind of backing out of it, and Brian came up with the idea of his brewery. It was going to be Weird Beard, because Brian has a beard that's plaited down to his waist, so he has the weird beard.
Okay.
I have the sensible beard. But then I kind of came back on the project, and I was more than happy to go with the Weird Beard name. It created a very good kind of launching point for our branding, and it seemed to fit with both Brian and I.
And talking about the branding, personally, I love your branding. I love the little skull on the bottle and how it changes to every bottle. How do you keep coming up with those different variations of the same thing?
A lot of credit's got to go to the guys who design our labels. Josh, who writes for the London Brews, you may have come across him before, and Chris, who designs the skulls. Josh is he's done some sort of labelling for big, sort of slightly less interesting beers, should we say?
Okay.
And when we first met him, he was very keen to get involved in a kind of craft beer kind of setup, So he offered to do the labels for free for us, which was like, yeah, perfect.
Brilliant.
And brought his friend Chris along, who did the skulls and came up with some ideas, and we just going to bat them around. But as soon as we saw the first couple of drafts of the stuff, we thought, right, we're going to pay you for this because this is really good. So yeah, I've been well happy with the labels.
I think it's one of the two things that really stand out about your brand is one, obviously what's inside the bottle, which from experience, having tried a few different variations of your beers, they've always been of a fantastic quality, and I've enjoyed every one of them.
You're very kind.
And I'm not just saying that because I'm sat here in your brewery, but obviously secondly the thing is the brand, and it's one of those things where personally I would find that if I walk into a bar that maybe I've not been into before, or a bar that I'm familiar with, and they've got recognisable brands on, it's one of the things that draws me.
I think our brand is quite recognisable. So that's one of the things where the consistency that Josh has brought to it is quite gratifying from our point of view. We're very happy.
Excellent. You say that. Because I've been having a look around your website before I came down today. You say that you want to continue to push the boundaries in beer, in brewing. What does that mean to the bloke on the street? What can they see as a result of that?
I think it probably means a little bit more to a beer geek than your average bloke on the street. It's for example, in the fermenter at the moment is a pilsner. That is single hop with Citra, and I used to be a lager drinker and still do occasionally drink the occasional lager, but I really like the American fruity hops, and I'm trying to sort of blend those two together to create some kind of. I know other people have done C-hop lagers and things like that, but never really with enough hop character for me. So that's kind of where I'm trying to push that out a little bit. I'm Brian with his the sort of the Imperial Stout. There's something like Dark Side Imperial Stout that is actually a mix with an Imperial IPA. Just to try and get the sort of mouthfeel of the stout and the hoppiness of the IPA together, and just sort of pushing these things together and just trying things out.
Mm-hmm. So would you say that your products, your beers, are aimed at the beer geeks, or are you trying to aim at the wider market as well?
I'd say we have some beers that are quite well aimed at beer geeks, but we also have plenty of beers that I think every man on the street would be quite happy to drink. We also try and do beers that we think will match well with food. So our range of saisons, I think, are very sort of food-friendly beers. Okay. So yeah, I think we try and cover a lot of bases. We're not trying to say, oh, we're exclusively a beer geek brewery, but we're not saying that we're not going to cater for the occasional ridiculous beer that the beer geeks will love, and maybe the general public might not.
And this week on the show, we've been reviewing the Fade to Black Black IPA. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit of history about that beer, a little bit of background to it?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. It comes from my my love of one of the very most Marmite of hops, Sriracha Ace, which loads of people dislike, but loads of people absolutely go mad for. It's a sort of Japanese heritage hop, and I think Sriracha Ace works very well in certain styles of beer, and particularly I think it works really well with dark beer, and the dark grains brings out a sort of toasted coconut kind of character that comes from the Sriracha. So that was kind of the basis. I initially brewed just a stout with Sriracha Ace, but then sort of thought, let's make it an IPA, added a bit of Citra to it, a little bit of Summit, tried to sort of bring some sort of fruity characters to go with the coconut as well. And it's one of the beers that I was most happy with from a homebrewing point of view. So
okay,
it was obvious that it was going to be one of the beers I brewed when I got my hands on the big kit.
And where do you get your inspiration from? Where do you continue to find inspiration to come up with new styles, new beers?
Reading, drinking, chatting to people about beer. Generally, just sort of every now and again, just have little things. Oh, what could I do? What could I do that would be different? So take a style and maybe sort of how can I twist this slightly to make it sort of more weird beer like. There's a little bit of that. Also the fact that we have Brian, who's a home brewer, and Dan now, who's our second brewer downstairs. He's also got home brew and he's got some good ideas as well. So there's kind of a melting pot and we kind of bounce ideas off each other, and it generally comes up with something reasonably good.
Okay, and where do let's talk collaborations for a while, because there's a couple that I want to chat to you about. How do they come about? How do you when you approach collaboration? So the two that I'm thinking of in particular, the one that you did with Andy Parker, who's been on the show before, Elusive Brew, which was the Nelson Saison, which I thoroughly enjoyed last year, and also more recently the Hive Mind, which you've done with the London Amateur Brewers. How does that start?
Well, we used to be, I guess I still am, members of London Amateur Brewers. I don't get to go to as many meetings as I would like just because of time constraints. So when we set up, we got a lot of support from London Amateur Brewers just in our beers in general over the number of years. So we wanted to give something back, so we offered to let them come and brew a beer with us, and that's how Hive Mind came about. And it was just there was a topic on their forum saying this is what we're going to brew, and we gave them a couple of different beers styles that they could brew, and they came up with basically most of the recipe, and we tweaked it and messed around with it to based on availability of hops and things like that. So that was how that one came about. And it was a good fun day. We entertained them here quite royally. To say they drank us out of house and home is probably a slight exaggeration, but there was a certain amount of beer was consumed on the day, and it was all good fun. The Nelson Saison was a different matter, as I've known Andy quite well from home brewing club and drinking with him and stuff, and his Nelson Saison that he home brewed I thought was one of the best beers I'd tried the previous year. So when he kind of got involved with the brewery and started acting about, I said, look, if we can get some Nelson from anywhere, we'll brew Nelson Saison. I know you're trying to go commercial, but it'll give you a little bit of a boost and a little bit of exposure, hopefully. And so that's how that came about. It's the one we created was not quite as Nelson in character, but was probably slightly more Saison-y in character than Andy's homebrew, and that was possibly primarily because we couldn't get any Nelson pellets to dry hop with. Okay. Because I like to have just a little bit of dry hop character in there. But we're very happy with the beer. It's apart from the fact it was slightly overcarbonated.
Is it one that we're going to see again?
Don't know. It all depends on Andy. Okay. It's his beer. We're not going to steal his recipe. I do joke with him saying, "No, we'll only invite you along so I can steal your recipe." But yeah, no. That's if he wants to come and brew it with us again, then that's great.
I'm sure there's many people out there that would probably like him to take up that invitation.
Yeah. I was actually quite gobsmacked by the number of Golden Pints blogs that actually mentioned that as one of their best collaborations of the year, which was very nice of them to say so.
And it's fair to say, I think, that both you and Brian are fairly successful homebrewers. Yeah. What advice would you give to anybody out there that's homebrewing that's maybe looking at taking that next step?
There's a lot of things to think about, and I could probably do a whole episode of your show just on that question. The main thing is to get your beers out there. Brew the beers that you want, get them out there, get people who are in positions of authority is not quite the right word I'm looking for, but power maybe. I don't know. But people like bar managers, brewery owners, people like that, get them to try their beers, get their feedback, because most of them will give you honest feedback where generally your mates will be saying, oh, that's great. So go to London Amateur Brewers or another homebrew club, and you'll get some honest feedback, and you'll get some people sort of pulling your beer apart a little bit, but that makes you a better brewer. And just getting out there, getting your beer out there, it gets you exposure and people get to know you, and then people then get to the point where they're looking forward to the fact that you might become a professional brewer, so they've tried this beer and they've liked it. So that it gives you a real kind of leg up. I think that was probably what was most important in our start. People seemed to be waiting for us to produce beer, and they jumped on it as soon as it came out. So it gave us quite a kick start to start off with.
That's excellent advice there for potential homebrewers. What can we expect from Weirdbeard in 2014? What's on the horizon for you guys that you're willing to share with us now?
I think 2014 is going to be. I'm hoping 2014 is going to be a reasonably stable year for us. We are a little bit constrained on sort of expansion on the size of the unit. So we have this one unit that you can see, but obviously the viewers, the listeners can't. But we had plans to expand either side. That if we got big, we would expand either side. But unfortunately, they sold the units out from under us. So the landlord is no longer leasing those places. The new landlord is trying to sell those places, and we don't really want to buy the freehold. So that kind of limits us a little bit. We're looking into whether we can get some more space somewhere, and that will determine quite a lot as to whether we can do much in the way of expansion. I would say from a beer point of view, we're probably going to continue with our range at present, do what we have been doing so far, do collaborations and one-offs and a few little things, and every now and again one of those will pop into the core range, and probably by the end of the year I'd expect about 15 core beers, which is a bit unfeasible, but you never know quite what's going to happen. So we have a couple of things kind of hooked up. There's we send some beer to Sweden, and the brewery who imports our beer in Sweden is called Electric Nurse. I think they've had some beer in London before, and we're talking to them about maybe doing a barley wine. There is a hope, again this is probably space dependent, is that we'll get an imperial stout, a proper imperial stout out there. I think that's one thing that's glaringly missing from our range of beers. But the thing is, we don't have the space to store it. We don't want to kick the imperial stout out straight away as soon as it's carbonated. We want to store it, and we just don't have currently space to store it. We would like to get more barrels for aging. We currently just have a single bourbon barrel, but we seem to have struggled to get hold of them. I believe Siren have bought them all. So Ryan, if you're listening, give me one of your barrels. So yeah, I mean, there's loads of things on the cards. Hopefully it'll all pan out.
And what is it that in your mind sets you apart? Why should people choose Weirdbeard if they're in a bar, if they're in a bottle shop? Why should they give your beer a go if they've not tried it before?
We put the quality of the beer above everything else. So we are doing our best to brew the best beer we possibly can. I don't quite know what else to say. We try and brew the best beer we can. I will try and tweak recipes if we think that things are not quite right. We will not release beer unless we're happy with it. That kind of thing. We'll just try and get a quality just spot on. That's where we think we can make a difference. The kind of adage we're kind of running to is that your branding can get someone to buy your beer the first time, but it's the taste of your beer will bring them back and drink a second, third, and fourth pint. So branding can get us to a certain point and get us the foothold. We just need to produce the best beer we can. We seem to be getting quite good reviews for our beer, but I think if you ask both Brian or I, we know that we can brew better than we are. So
it's a great philosophy to have like that.
Just striving for getting it better.
Yeah, branding will get you so far, but then it's the quality that's going to keep people coming back.
Yeah,
isn't it?
absolutely, absolutely.
Obviously, our focus this season has been breweries in London, and there are a few of them now. And
one or two.
Seems like they're popping up every week. What does it mean to you to be brewing in London right now?
London is the most dynamic beer scene outside the USA at the moment, in my view. The beer scene in the USA obviously is a lot more mature than it is in the UK, but the sheer number of really good pubs and really good breweries that are kicking around London now it makes it a really exciting, vibrant, fun place to be A, drinking beer, and B, making beer.
And finally, where can people find out more information about Weirdbeard? What's your your website address, a bit of an opportunity for a bit of a sales pitch at the end.
Our website is www.weirdbeardbrewco.com. You'll find a certain amount of information on there about most of our core beers and some of our specials and stuff. We used to be very good at writing a blog when we were starting, but sort of time and busyness has kind of constrained that a little bit. Although we did seem to get more hits on our blog last week than we have done for many a year, but that's a totally different matter. And hopefully you'll find some of our beers. We sell quite a lot of beer in London and in Manchester in particular.
Okay.
So hopefully that will. It shouldn't be too difficult to find our beers if you'd like to drink them.
Okay, well, thanks for that, Greg. Really do appreciate your time.
No problems at all.
And hopefully the listeners have enjoyed this interview as well.
I hope so.
Thank you.